Hey, just to let you know, this is just a condensed form of a review from our podcast episode. If you'd like to watch the full episode, link in the description.
Yeah.
So, why don't we go talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant
Mutant
Mayhem?
Mayhem. Oh,
Now, Robert is a big fan of this film, we've heard.
yeah. It's a shame he's not here to talk about it, but you might down the line. You might talk about it down the line.
Down the line, we will do at least a segment with Robert on this film,
Yeah.
if not more. The fact he's not here means I don't have much to say because I thought this film was very average.
Yeah, you liked it the least out of the three of us,
Yes.
and Robert liked it the most, and I fairly enjoyed it. I gave it about a 7.5 roughly. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting new take on the turtles, but also at the point where it's not too much of a difference. It's a good amount of uniqueness to what they've already made before. And for me, my history with the turtles, I've only seen the Michael Bay ones and the CGI 2007, I want to call it one.
Yeah, probably.
And I watched the 2D animation in like 2003 and 4, I think that came out. That was my favorite version of them back then. So yeah, so I've always grew up with them, but they were never like my thing. You know what I mean? They were never. They were kind of like Transformers, where it's like I was into them, but I wasn't Star Wars or superheroes level. You know what I mean? I wasn't that level of fandom with them. But yeah, I don't know where do you want to begin with this film then?
I think I'm just going to give my very honest take of I don't think I like this era of the Turtles as much.
So the origin,
I
essentially.
yeah, I think I don't really care about the origin too much. I like that's not to because obviously that's what this film is. So me saying that is not really I hit on this film. It's more just my preference of I like from the Turtles.
Do you appreciate them changing up to have them be actual kids compared to like adults in the other versions? Because like they're
Well,
clearly going for their
this is
child
this is going to get
version of them.
this is what my point is that I'm more looking forward to the future films in this series
Yeah,
with this aesthetic, with this like what this is.
yeah.
But I'm looking forward to the second or the third film where they're older.
Shredder.
Honestly, I didn't really care who the villain is, but as long as the dynamic of the four is good,
Yeah,
fine.
that's the important part. Yeah,
I think we did agree quite a lot on the character because we've spoken a little bit about this, but
yeah,
I thought this was a pretty good film, but it could have been a very good film with some minor changes, and I think that's probably just because this is aimed at younger kids.
yeah. And I hope, like as you reference, I hope it ages with the audience. So the
Yep.
next one's a little bit more gritty, and after that's a little bit more gritty. You
So
know,
it is
so
hard to shit on this film because I
yeah,
know it does definitely aim at a lower audience, and I would say even aims at like a lower audience than Spider-Verse did, the first one.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
if you're expecting a Spider-Verse type film, I would lower your age range from say 16 to 20 or
yeah,
like 16 plus to maybe like 14 plus
yeah.
because there's a lot of like because the thing is I don't mind like it's going to come up like the turtles talking about risen up April and stuff like that. Like honestly I don't really mind that because
I
I guess
don't
they
at
age with the
all.
times.
Yeah, I'm happy
I,
with it, man.
I could understand why people wouldn't like that, but
I can understand why like people that are fans of the old stuff and like that,
yeah,
but at the end of the day, they're trying to appeal to new
yeah,
audiences,
exactly.
So
I
that's
feel
just
like
the
that's
reality
fine.
of it.
And I didn't find anything in this film like
Offensive.
offensive,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like not offensive, but I didn't
To the
feel like it
lore,
was
to the
ever
lore.
being.
Like
Yeah,
offensive to
I
the
did.
lore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't feel like because obviously the obvious like the elephant in the room is that April is now. I've heard people say she looks like Lil Wayne, but which is not wrong. But
Yeah.
she's the elephant in the room, right? And that's not a fat joke, but she's the elephant in the room of like that's the major change they've made here that
Yeah.
people kicked off about, and then you had a whole oh this isn't what Turtles is, and then you had a whole counter oh but she's in this thing and she's black in this thing like I don't care.
Yeah.
This is what the film is. I don't really care about all the other crap.
Yeah.
She's fine in this film.
She's fine.
She's fine. She's not overly preachy. I wouldn't even say she's. I would say she's probably minimally preachy, but I doubt it would. If you're taking offense at that, it's your problem. It's not the film's.
Yeah. There's like moments where I don't like her as a character, but I think that's what they were trying to do. Like, so for example, there's a scene. The big one for me was when they're talking to the mutants, and she's over the phone being like, "Fight them, fight them!" It's like, April, like there's like 10 of them. Like, what you expect, bro? They're just using this, you know.
She's younger as well, right? Than she
She's
usually
younger
is.
as well. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it makes
I get
sense.
that, but there's or like the vomit jokes were getting a little bit too much for me. I'm just like, okay, let's move on. Like, I don't know. It might be like, again, it's a younger crowd that's watching it, so maybe they find that funny and stuff. I find that just a little bit too like,
That was definitely one of the worst parts of the film for me. But
yeah,
like, yeah, because I actually thought it was like a funnier joke if they didn't show it.
right,
They
right,
just cut because I thought that's what they were going to do because they kind of they filmed it like that, like they kind of like staged it like that where it felt like it was going to cut and then she was just going to come back from her flashback into the present day and then she just vomits all over the place and I was like,
yeah,
eh,
yeah,
okay. But like you say, like when I went to cinema, it was mostly like parents with young kids,
yeah.
like
Same,
4 or 5.
same.
So if they find that funny, I'm not going to knock it.
Yeah,
But I found it an unoffensive, pretty good time. I'm
I thought
glad it
this.
was short because I felt
Yeah,
like it could have even been shorter,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I would have probably rather that it was. I have no problem with like an 80-minute, 70-minute animated film.
Well, I think the cinema standard's 90. I think.
Nowadays,
Yeah,
but
nowadays, yeah,
I definitely think if your film's not if it doesn't if it's not going to hold up to an hour and a half, like who cares? Like
yeah.
if it's going to be better as a 75-minute film, then make it a 75-minute film.
Right, right. Yeah, just put on
Especially because
Netflix or something.
again, like when I was in the cinema, like this isn't me complaining because obviously kids are restless and kids are kids.
Yeah,
Uh, but the row in front, there was like a bunch of kids and like he kept getting up out of his seat and he was like, and he was like, oh, I'm like all restless and that. And I'm like, probably if you were aiming at a younger audience as well, it'd probably make more sense to shorten it because you're expecting kids to lock eyes on it and not like be restless in the cinema for 90 minutes.
yeah. True, true.
So if you're aiming at a younger audience, maybe make it a shorter film, and then as they go on, make them longer and sort of thing. So yeah, so I think that's my general thoughts.
I thought the soundtrack was banging.
I thought I heard you say that before I watched the film.
Yeah,
I thought it was quite good, but I didn't think it was amazing.
that's fair. It's not Guardians, but
No,
it's
but
definitely one of my favorite
I will say,
of them.
and I think we agreed on this as well, is
One
my
of our
favorite
favorite
scene
scenes.
in the film by far was the montage. So when April gives, she's like, "Oh, I've got 5 leads.
Yeah,
Go get them," and then they go to all these different like gangs all over New York.
yeah.
That was by far the best scene, and I
So good.
was my only complaint is that that happened so early in the film that I was then wanting some sort of escalation of that type of
Yeah,
thing. So I wanted more of that later on in the film, and that never came, and that was a bit disappointing for me because I was like, "This is the best part of your film," and it happened in like the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes maybe.
yeah.
I will say I liked the little fight scene they had before that as well. I thought that was quite good in the garage,
There's
like their
there's
first fight.
definitely there's definitely highlights throughout, but that was the peak. Like, that was Turtles for me. Like, them hunting down criminal bosses and stuff. You know, and it's like, oh yes. And the music at the time was so good
Yeah,
as
the music was
well. I'm
good.
like, yes,
And I think that's why I opened with the line of like, I'm looking forward more to the next films because I think that's what the next films need to be is more of that because they've already established
yeah,
well, what they've established in this film is like the turtles are young and now they've got this big extended family. But I think in the next films, if they lean more into that montage,
yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, that's the good shit.
I
So
have a feeling the next film, it's gonna sound so cliche, but I think it could work, where they're growing up, but in doing so, like, they're getting a little bit
angsty.
like angsty, but also like having like identity issues in the sense of, oh, Raph. I know it's like a typical story in Turtles, but Raph is feeling, maybe I should be the leader. Like, I'm the better fighter. Like, why shouldn't I be the leader? You know, and then there's infighting and stuff. You know, or like give them little story arcs each, because I didn't really feel that at all, except maybe Leo in this film that had a
Right.
little bit of a story arc, and that's him becoming the leader, which I appreciate because usually Leo's one of the boring ones in my opinion, but in this film I actually thought he was the best one out of the bunch.
He's definitely the easiest to make boring, right?
Well, yeah, he's
Which
just like the
is
typical
ironic
hero, right?
because I think in this film, like you say, he's probably the best one.
I think so. But I think it's because he's the only one with a story and the character arc.
I mean, the other thing is, again, if you're aiming for a young audience, maybe having too many plot threads or too many character arcs in the one film might be too much.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I said, I think this is a great like ground base for them to branch off of because they're already making a TV show spin off of this and stuff. Like that's all in development.
Are they?
Yeah, they announced that before it even
Is it
came
based
out.
on the Turtles, or is it like a spin-off character?
I believe it's the Turtles.
Okay,
So
okay.
there might be a bridge from that to their adult stage, you know. So
Yeah,
that could, which I'm fine with. I don't know if I'll watch it, but if I hear good stuff, I might. And maybe that's where you'll hear because, like I was saying to you in private, or I'll say private, like in our own talks. I don't want to see too many of the other mutants going forward. Like I think it's going to be a waste of time. Where I'd rather focus on the turtles. But in the show, maybe you can expand on them. Where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we have Paul Rudd. But like, is Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen really going to like sign up for a bloody TV show to play
what I was hoping
those
was
characters?
is that because they're all basically villains, or they should be
Yeah,
in the lore, and they're all friends at this point, I'm kind of hoping that they do turn villains eventually, and that makes them more tragic villains, where you're like, oh, well, we used to be a family.
right.
That's what I'm hoping, because at least then they have an emotional connection to every single one of the villains
Yeah,
from the get-go, which could be pretty satisfying.
yeah.
Obviously, it could make this film a little less. If they fuck it up, it could make this one a little less effective, I guess, in what it puts forward as the message.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought most of them were pretty forgettable. Like,
Yeah, like I remember, like obviously you remember Rocksteady, Bebop because they're like the probably the most famous ones out of that bunch. But you know, like Paul Rudd's frog character, like I liked him. I liked Ice Cube's fly character, Superfly. Like, you know, like there's some of them are pretty
I actually
alright.
wasn't too hot on Superfly.
That's all Superfly. I think I liked the performance over the actual character because the actual character was fairly generic.
Right.
Oh, humans don't like how we look, therefore we're going to kill everyone. Like,
Which is
which
ironic because all the humans in this film are fucking
ugly,
horrible creatures. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, I thought, you know, I think it's a perfectly fine kids film. I think it's not on this level of Spider-Man, or I've not seen Puss in Boots, but I've heard good things. It's probably not on the same level as that either. But I think
Right.
it's, you know, it's a good standard. It's definitely not one of those films where you're like, oh my god, why are they making these type of films these days? You know, like Pixar. You know, where it's kind of like what you do in Pixar. Like you could be doing so much better than this. This is a much better version of what Pixar's doing these days.
I would say if I had kids that were of the age of like 3 to 10, I would 100% show them this film.
100% easy.
Yeah.
And and that's the thing. Like these films, yeah, they're for kids, but adults should be able to watch them as well because they're the ones taking them to the film. They're also paying for a ticket. You know, it's
And
like
also,
you need to
Teenage
have
Mutant
references
Ninja
for them.
Turtles doesn't really have the name it used to, obviously.
Yeah, it's definitely.
And this is them
not
obviously
big.
trying to get it back, right?
Yeah,
So you're expecting the nostalgia, like a lot of the stuff. There's stuff in the film that was nostalgia bait, right, as well, where
yeah.
you're obviously putting stuff in there for people who used to be fans,
Hmm.
or still are, but are older now. So yeah, but yeah, like I say, my thoughts are, yeah, this is a pretty good film, but I'm probably not going to watch it again. I'm probably just going to watch the next one.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm probably on the same boat, to be honest.
But if we ever have kids in between, I'll show my kids it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Very good.